The auctioneer's gavel hovered in the air like a thunderbolt waiting to strike, while $7 million hung in the balance. In the pristine white tent of the Kentucky horse auction, millionaire tech mogul Quentin Ravencrest adjusted his platinum cufflinks and prepared to make the winning bid on Tempest's Dream, the most magnificent stallion anyone had ever seen. The horse's midnight black coat rippled like liquid silk, and his silver mane caught the afternoon light like spun moonbeams. 7 million, going once. The auctioneer's voice boomed across the hushed crowd of wealthy bidders. Quentin's hand twitched upward, ready to secure his prize. He'd built his fortune on reading market trends, but today he was betting on something far more valuable. A connection he'd felt the moment he saw Tempest's Dream. The stallion possessed an otherworldly grace that reminded him of the wild horses he'd dreamed of as a boy, before boardrooms and stock portfolios consumed his life. Going twice. But something extraordinary happened. A soft, melodious humming drifted through the tent, and Tempest's Dream lifted his majestic head, ears pricked forward with sudden interest. The sound came from beyond the auction ring, where a young woman sat on a hay bale, completely unaware of the bidding war raging inside. Her name was Delphine Groves, and she'd wandered onto the auction grounds after her old pickup truck broke. Down on the highway, barefoot and wearing a faded sundress that had seen better days, Delphine hummed an old mountain song her grandmother had taught her, a melody that seemed to carry the wind across meadows and the whisper of ancient streams. She'd been walking for miles, her worn sneakers having given up their souls somewhere along the dusty road, but the music in her heart never faltered. Inside the tent, Tempest's Dream suddenly reared, his powerful hooves striking the air as he trumpeted a call that silenced every voice in the arena. The stallion's eyes blazed with an intelligence that seemed almost human, and he turned toward the sound of that distant song with an urgency that made the handlers step back in amazement. "What in blazes?" the auctioneer muttered, lowering his gavel as chaos erupted around the ring. Quentin felt his chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. He'd spent decades acquiring everything money could buy, yet this moment revealed something his billions couldn't purchase. The pure, unfiltered connection between two souls recognizing each other across the void. The horse's reaction to the girl's song was unlike anything he'd ever witnessed, a reminder of the magic he'd lost somewhere in his climb to the top. The millionaire's hand slowly lowered as he watched Tempest's Dream pace restlessly in the ring, the stallion's attention completely focused on the melody floating from outside. Around him, other bidders whispered nervously. But Quentin remained silent, transfixed by the realization that all his money meant nothing in the face of this inexplicable bond. As Delphine's humming grew stronger, carried by the evening breeze, Tempest's Dream's calls became more insistent, and even the most skeptical observers began to understand that they were witnessing something far beyond a mere auction. They were seeing the moment when destiny revealed itself, in the auction ground erupted in whispers and gasps as Tempest's Dream broke free from his handlers, his hooves thundering against the earth as he galloped toward the source of that haunting melody. Quentin Ravencrest pushed through the crowd, his $7 million bid forgotten, driven by a curiosity that burned brighter than his desire to own the magnificent stallion. Delphine Groves had no idea she'd become the center of a commotion that would be talked about for generations. She sat on an old hay bale behind the auction barn, her bare feet dangling in the warm Kentucky grass, completely absorbed in the song that had been passed down through her family for over a century. The melody told the story of a girl who could speak to wild creatures, and today, it seemed more real than ever. When Tempest's Dream appeared around the corner of the barn, moving with a grace that defied his massive size, Delphine's eyes widened in wonder. The stallion approached her slowly, his dark eyes reflecting an intelligence that seemed to peer directly into her soul. She'd never seen a horse so beautiful, so powerful, yet so gentle in his approach. "Hello, beautiful," she whispered, her voice carrying the same musical quality as her humming. "Are you the one who's been calling to me?" Tempest's Dream lowered his magnificent head, and to everyone's amazement, he nuzzled against Delphine's outstretched hand. The touch sent a shiver of recognition through both of them, a connection that transcended the physical world and touched something deeper, something that money and breeding papers could never define. Behind them, Quentin arrived with a small crowd of auctioneers, handlers, and fellow bidders, all staring in disbelief at the scene before them. The most expensive horse in the state had chosen a girl with no shoes and a song over millions of dollars and a life of luxury. "Miss," Quentin called out, his voice unusually gentle, "that horse is worth more than most people see in a lifetime. He's dangerous, unpredictable." Delphine turned to look at the assembled crowd, her green eyes sparkling with an inner light that made Quentin's words die in his throat. "He's not dangerous," she said simply. "He's just been waiting for the right song." As if to prove her point, Tempest's Dream knelt down beside her, his massive frame lowering until she could easily climb onto his back. The crowd gasped as the barefoot girl slid onto the stallion's back, with the natural grace of someone who'd been born to ride. "I don't understand," whispered Cordelia Blackthorne, another wealthy bidder who'd been competing for the horse. "He's never let anyone ride him without a saddle. The trainers said he was impossible to handle." Delphine smiled as she ran her fingers through Tempest's Dream's silver mane. Maybe he was just waiting for someone who understood his language. She began to hum again, and the stallion's ears perked forward, his entire body relaxing under her touch. Quentin watched this impossible scene unfold, feeling something crack open in his chest, a longing he'd buried under years of corporate success and material accumulation. This girl possessed something he'd been searching for his entire life without realizing it, the ability to connect with the world on a level that transcended transaction and ownership. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Delphine Groves," she replied, her voice carrying like music on the wind. "And I think this beautiful boy has been waiting for me as long as I've been waiting for him." Quentin Ravencrest stood at the window of his penthouse suite that night, the city lights blurring together as he contemplated the most perplexing situation of his life. He'd built his empire by making decisive moves, but today had shattered his understanding of how the world worked. The image of Delphine Groves riding Tempest's Dream bareback, her face radiant with joy, haunted him in the most beautiful way possible. His assistant, Prescott Whitmore, cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, the auction house is holding the horse pending resolution of the bidding. Technically, you never completed your bid, but they're willing to honor the $7 million if you choose to proceed." "And the girl?" Quentin asked without turning. "From the window. Her name is Delphine Groves, 23 years old. Works 3 jobs to support her ailing grandmother in the mountains of eastern Kentucky. She was traveling to Louisville for a job interview when her truck broke down. She's been walking for 2 days." Quentin closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his wealth like never before. He could buy the horse, bring him to his estate, and surround him with the finest care money could provide. But he'd seen the look in Tempest's Dream's eyes when the stallion gazed at Delphine, a connection that made his millions seem insignificant. "Sir?" Prescott pressed gently. "The auction house needs an answer by morning." Meanwhile, 50 miles away, Delphine sat in a small motel room that the auction house had graciously provided, staring at the business card Quentin had pressed into her hand. The elegant lettering read, "Ravencrest Technologies, Quentin Ravencrest, CEO." But it was the handwritten note on the back that made her heart race. "I'd like to talk to you about the horse. Please call me." She'd never owned anything more valuable than her grandmother's old guitar, and now she was somehow connected to a horse worth millions. The whole situation felt like a dream, but the memory of Tempest's Dream's warm breath against her cheek was real enough to make her believe in magic again. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. The caller ID showed an unknown number, but something told her to answer. "Hello, Delphine," came Quentin's voice, surprisingly warm and uncertain. "I hope I'm not calling too late." "No, I couldn't sleep anyway," she admitted. "This whole day feels like something out of a fairy tale." "I've been thinking about what happened today," Quentin said, choosing his words carefully. "I've never seen anything like the connection between you and that horse. It was extraordinary." Delphine's heart skipped. Are you calling to tell me he's yours now? Because I understand, I know I can't afford him and I know you can. Actually, I'm calling to ask you something, Quentin said, surprising himself with his own words. What if we could find a way for both of us to be part of his life? I have the resources to care for him, but you have something I could never buy, his trust, his love. The silence stretched between them, filled with possibility and hope. What are you suggesting? Delphine asked softly. I'm suggesting that maybe the horse is trying to teach us something about what really matters, Quentin replied. And maybe we should listen. The morning sun cast long shadows across Ravencrest Estate as Quentin led Delphine through the sprawling grounds that would become Tempest Dream's new home. She walked beside him in borrowed boots and a simple dress, her eyes wide with wonder at the rolling pastures and pristine stables that stretched as far as the eye could see. I still can't believe you're doing this, Delphine said, her voice filled with amazement. You paid $7 million for a horse, and now you're offering to share him with a complete stranger. Quentin paused beside a white oak tree that had stood on the property for over 2 centuries. Yesterday taught me that some things can't be owned, only shared. Tempest's Dream chose you, and fighting that choice would be like trying to cage the wind. Behind them, a horse trailer rounded the curved driveway, carrying the stallion who had changed both their lives. Delphine's heart raced as she watched the magnificent animal emerge from the trailer, his coat gleaming in the morning light. Tempest's Dream's eyes immediately found hers across the distance, and he nickered softly, a sound that seemed to carry all the joy in the world. He remembers, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. As they approached the stallion, Quentin found himself studying Delphine's face, marveling at how she seemed to glow with an inner light whenever she was near the horse. He'd spent his entire adult life surrounded by people who wanted something from him, but this girl asked for nothing except the chance to love a horse who had chosen her. I've arranged for you to stay in the guest house, Quentin said, gesturing toward a charming cottage nestled among the trees. It's yours for as long as you want it. I've also set up a trust fund for your grandmother's medical care. Delphine stopped walking and turned to face him, her green eyes blazing with a mixture of gratitude and fierce independence. I can't accept charity, Mr. Ravencrest. I need to earn my way. It's not charity, Quentin said quickly. I'm offering you a job. I want you to be Tempest's Dream's primary caretaker. I'll provide the resources, but you'll provide the love and understanding he needs. I've seen what happens when you're together. It's like watching magic come to life. As if to emphasize the point, Tempest's Dream broke away from his handlers and trotted directly to Delphine, lowering his head so she could stroke his neck. The stallion's entire demeanor changed in her presence, transforming from a powerful, potentially dangerous animal into something gentle and trusting. I've been thinking about what you said on the phone, Delphine said, her fingers working through the horse's mane. About the horse teaching us something. What do you think he's trying to tell us? Quentin watched the interaction between girl and horse, feeling something shift in his chest. I think he's teaching us that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold. They can only be discovered, nurtured, and shared. Over the following weeks, an unlikely partnership blossomed between the tech billionaire and the mountain girl. Quentin found himself spending more time at the stables than in his office, drawn by the peace that seemed to radiate from Delphine and Tempest's Dream. He learned that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in moments of connection, laughter, and the simple joy of watching a horse respond to a song. Delphine, in turn, discovered that beneath Quentin's corporate exterior lay a man who had lost touch with the simple pleasures of life. She began teaching him the mountain songs her grandmother had passed down, and to everyone's surprise, Tempest's Dream responded to Quentin's tentative humming with the same gentle affection he showed Delphine. He's accepting you, Delphine said, one evening as they watched the stallion graze in the golden light of sunset. He knows you're learning to hear his language. Quentin smiled, feeling more content than he had in years. I think he's teaching us both something about what it means to truly live. 3 months after their first meeting, Delphine's morning routine had become the heartbeat of Ravencrest Estate. She would wake before dawn, her bare feet finding the familiar path to the stables where Tempest's dream waited for her, his dark eyes bright with anticipation. Their connection had deepened into something that transcended the ordinary relationship between human and horse. It was a partnership that seemed to bridge two worlds. On this particular morning, Quentin emerged from the main house to find Delphine, sitting in the middle of the pasture, surrounded by not just Tempest's dream, but every horse on the property. Her grandmother's old guitar rested across her lap, and she was singing a melody that seemed to make the very air shimmer with possibility. "How does she do that?" whispered Magnolia Thornfield, the estate's head trainer, who had been working with horses for 30 years. "I've never seen anything like it. They're drawn to her like she's speaking their ancient language." Quentin approached quietly, not wanting to break the spell that had settled over the morning. Delphine's voice rose and fell like the wind through mountain passes, carrying stories of wild horses running free across endless plains. As she sang, Tempest's dream lowered his head until his muzzle touched her shoulder, and the other horses formed a protective circle around them both. "It's not just the song," Quentin realized aloud. "It's her heart. She's not trying to control them or use them. She's inviting them to be part of something beautiful." The transformation wasn't limited to the horses. Word of the barefoot girl who could charm stallions with mountain songs had spread throughout the Kentucky horse community, and visitors began arriving at Ravencrest Estate, drawn by curiosity and hope. Some came with troubled horses that no trainer could handle. Others came seeking to understand the magic they'd heard whispered about in barns and auction houses across the state. Delphine welcomed them all with the same open heart. She'd shown Tempest's dream. A war veteran named Jasper Cromwell arrived with a traumatized mare who hadn't let anyone touch her in months. Within an hour of hearing Delphine's gentle humming, the mare was eating carrots from the girl's palm and nuzzling her cheek. "She's healing them," Quentin observed to Prescott as they watched from the porch. Not just the horses, the people too. Indeed, something miraculous was happening at the estate. The wealthy owners who brought their troubled horses found themselves staying longer than planned, drawn by the peace that seemed to permeate the property. Corporate executives who hadn't smiled in years found themselves laughing as they watched Delphine teach their children to communicate with horses through song and gentle touch. "I've been thinking," Delphine said to Quentin one evening as they watched Tempest's dream run free in the moonlight. "Maybe this isn't just about us anymore. Maybe Tempest brought us together so we could share this gift with others." Quentin nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "A sanctuary not just for horses, but for people who've forgotten how to connect with the world around them." "Exactly," Delphine said, her voice filled with excitement. "We could call it Songbird Sanctuary, a place where broken hearts, both human and animal, can find healing through music and connection." As if responding to their conversation, Tempest's dream galloped toward them, his hooves creating a rhythm that matched the beating of their hearts. He came to a stop just inches away, his breath warm against their faces, and in his eyes they saw the reflection of their shared dream. "He approves," Delphine laughed, reaching up to stroke the stallion's neck. "Then it's settled," Quentin said, feeling more alive than he had in decades. "We'll build something beautiful together, all three of us." 1 year later, Songbird Sanctuary stood as a testament to the power of unexpected connections and the magic that happens when hearts choose love over logic. The rolling hills of Ravencrest Estate had been transformed into something that defied easy description. Part horse rescue, part healing center, part miracle in progress. Delphine stood at the center of the main arena, her bare feet planted firmly in the soft earth, surrounded by a circle of children and adults who had come seeking something they couldn't name. In her arms, she held her grandmother's guitar, its worn wood polished smooth by generations of mountain songs. Beside her, Tempest's dream stood like a gentle giant, his silver mane catching the afternoon light as he watched the assembled crowd with knowing eyes. "Music is the language that every heart understands," Delphine said, her voice carrying across the arena like a prayer. "It doesn't matter if you're 8 years old or 80, whether you're the CEO of a company or someone who's never owned anything valuable in your life. When we sing together, we remember who we really are. In the crowd, Quentin watched with tears in his eyes as his 7-year-old niece Cordelia stepped forward to pet Tempest's dream. The little girl had been silent since her parents' divorce, but as Delphine began to hum, Cordelia's voice joined, tentative at first, then growing stronger. The transformation had been gradual but profound. What started as a simple arrangement between a millionaire and a barefoot girl had blossomed into something that touched hundreds of lives. The sanctuary welcomed troubled horses and traumatized children, wealthy executives seeking meaning and mountain families who'd lost their way. Delphine's gift for healing through song had attracted attention from across the country, but she remained unchanged. Humble, generous, and completely devoted to the magic she'd discovered. I never thought I'd see the day when my boardroom would be empty because I'd rather be in a barn, Quentin confessed to his old friend, Senator Bartholomew Ashworth, who had come to visit with his own troubled grandson. Maybe that's the point, Bartholomew replied, watching as his grandson, who hadn't spoken to him in months, laughed with delight as one of the rescued horses nuzzled his shoulder. Maybe we spend so much time building walls that we forget how to build bridges. As the afternoon session concluded, Delphine found herself walking through the pastures with Quentin, just as they had that first morning. Tempest's dream followed behind them, no longer the isolated, expensive stallion from the auction, but a beloved member of a family that had grown beyond anything they could have imagined. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd just bought him that day? Delphine asked, her hand resting on Quentin's arm. Every day, Quentin admitted. And every day I'm grateful I listened to something bigger than my own desire to possess him. He didn't need an owner. He needed a family. We all did, Delphine said softly. I was so lost before I met you both. My grandmother always said that when you're walking in the dark, you have to trust that the next step will be there when you need it. I never understood what she meant until that day at the auction. As they crested the hill overlooking the main house, they could see the evening activities beginning. Families gathering around the fire pit, children learning to braid horse manes, adults discovering that their hearts could still sing. The sanctuary had become more than a place. It had become a living testament to the idea that love multiplies when it's shared. Grandma Rue would be so proud, Delphine whispered, thinking of the woman who had passed away peacefully in her sleep just months after the sanctuary opened. Her final words a blessing for the girl who had learned to make magic with mountain. Song's Tempest's dream stepped between them, his large head touching both their shoulders in a gesture that had become his signature blessing. The horse who had chosen love over luxury, song over silver, had brought together not just two people, but an entire community of hearts seeking connection. As the sun set over Songbird Sanctuary, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Delphine began to hum the old mountain song that had started it all. Quentin's voice joined hers, then the voices of the children playing in the pasture, then the adults gathered around the fire. Soon, the entire sanctuary resonated with the melody that had first drawn a magnificent stallion to a barefoot girl. With nothing but a song, the millionaire had paid millions, but the horse had chosen something priceless, a girl with no shoes, a song in her heart, and the infinite capacity to love. And in choosing her, Tempest's dream had taught them all that the most valuable treasures in life aren't bought or sold. They're discovered when hearts brave enough to trust in magic find their way to each other.